let's get this show on the road. Great to have councillors with us. As we do at this committee, each time we gather, we acknowledge and pay respects to our traditional owners, the Aboriginal people of these lands and waters, and we acknowledge all their descendants. We also acknowledge the many Aboriginal people from other regions, as well as Torres Strait and South Sea Islander people who now live in our local area and have made an important contribution to our community. Attendance and apologies. We have everyone here except for Councillor Castro, who we are not waiting for. Has anyone heard from him? No? We'll just keep pushing on. Councillor Fowler, it's great to have you with us. Councillor O'Neill, thank you for coming as well. First item on the agenda is there's no leaves of absence. There's confirmation of minutes. Can I get a mover for the minutes? We've got Councillor Marshall, seconded Councillor Martin. All those in favour? Minutes are carried. Does anyone have any conflict of interest declarations they want to make today? No? Great. We have two start items. The forward planning schedule is starred, and also the report or the petition response relating to Flying Fox at Fred Cass Family Park. Is anyone happy? Do anyone want to unstar those? All right, do I have a mover for the start items? Councillor Wilkinson, seconded Councillor Marshall. All those in favour? Both of those start items are resolved. The next item, and only other item on the agenda, is the Gold Coast Local Heritage Register proposed entries, and we have a presentation, I think, from Anne. Maybe? Yes. Morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors. My name is Anne McKenzie, Coordinator Heritage. Today I'll brief you on 4 places recommended by city officers for entry onto the Gold Coast Local Heritage Register.
Anne, can you do me a favour and just that microphone, just bring it closer to your mouth?
Sure.
That'd be great. Awesome. So good.
Okay. Would you like me to start again?
No, you
all good?
It was great.
Okay, thank you. These places include Cedar Creek Hall, Coomera Branch Queensland Country Women's Association, the Ocean View Motor Inn, former, and the Queensland Country Women's Association, Coolangatta. I'll outline the outcome of significance assessments for each site with reference to the criteria met, as well as the results of recent owner and public submissions sought in accordance with statutory requirements. The City maintains the Gold Coast Local Heritage Register, a legal instrument established in 2013. The register includes a range of places, including historic buildings, trees, monuments, and archaeological sites. These places reflect our evolution from farming communities to the tourism boom of the post-World War II era. Why have a local heritage register? A local heritage register is more than a list. It's a way to protect what makes our community unique. And here's why it matters. It keeps our story alive. It preserves places that tell the story of our past, so future generations can understand where we've come from. It builds community pride. Recognising heritage sites helps us celebrate our identity and strengthens our sense of belonging. It guides growth responsibly. It ensures that new development respects the cultural heritage of our area, balancing progress with preservation. It boosts tourism and our local economy. Heritage places attract visitors and support local business. It supports sustainability. Reusing historic buildings reduces waste and saves resources. And finally, but not least, it provides legal protection. Formal listing helps safeguard our city's important places for our community. The Queensland Heritage Act sets out the framework for local heritage. It requires local government to formally identify and protect local heritage places in a local government area. Councils are required to maintain a register or planning scheme overlay with listed sites to ensure sustainable development and the conservation of local heritage for the community. The Act also sets out the process for entering a place onto a local heritage register. And the decision to enter a place onto a local heritage register in Queensland is vested in council and must be made by council resolution. The Gold Coast Local Heritage Register currently includes 84 places, with the last entry made in 2019. Anyone can nominate a place for entry, and a nomination form can be found on the city's website. There are 8 qualifying criteria for entering a place on the register, and the 8 criteria are listed here. A place only needs to meet the threshold for one of the 8 criteria to be eligible for entry onto the register. The cultural heritage significance of the places that we're considering today, Cedar Creek Hall, Coomera Branch Queensland Country Women's Association, Ocean View Motor Informer, and the Queensland Country Women's Association Coolangatta, was rigorously assessed against the city's criteria by suitably qualified and experienced heritage professionals and following state guidelines. The outcome determined that all 4 places met the threshold for entry onto the register. And on this basis, the statutory notification process was commenced. The process for entering a place onto the register is set out under the Queensland Heritage Act, as we've already discussed, and can be summarised into 3 key phases: the proposal to enter, public notification, and decision and entry. For the 4 places you'll consider today, owners were notified on the 15th of September, and the public notice was published on the 19th of September, with the public notification period running from the 19th of September to the 20th of October. As set out under the Act, Council must now make its decision by council resolution within 80 days of the public notice date, which means by the 16th of January 2026. I'll now share with you the results of the significance assessments and the submissions for the 4 places that are under consideration. So the first we'll discuss is Cedar Creek Hall in Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek Hall was nominated by a community group, and formal assessment was completed by the city and confirmed that Cedar Creek Hall meets the criteria thresholds for historic importance, class characteristics, and special association with the community. The full citation and statement of significance was included in your document package. During the notification period, 10 submissions were received. All of these were supportive of entering the place onto the Gold Coast Local Heritage Register, including the property trustee. The owner, which is the state, did not lodge a submission. The proposed heritage boundary for this place is lot on plan, and that's shown here in yellow. Turning now to the second place under consideration, which is the Coomera Branch Queensland Country Women's Association Memorial Hall in Oxenford. Formal assessment was completed by the city and confirmed that this place meets the criteria thresholds for historic importance, class characteristics, and both of the special association criteria. The full citation and statement of significance for this property is also included in your documentation package. During the notification period, 8 submissions were received. 7 of these were supportive. 1 submission, that being of the owner, did not consider the property in its entirety to be of cultural heritage significance, with concerns around the area for protection. On the back of the owner's submission, city officers refined the boundary to include only the elements of significance with a 5-metre buffer, ensuring that the heritage protection of the significant features did not provide an unnecessary encumbrance on the broader area of the property. And the revised heritage boundary is shown here in yellow. Moving on to the third place under consideration, that's Ocean View Motor Inn, former in Coolangatta. And a disclosure here, I had to make an amendment to the presentation. There was a duplication of the criteria in relation to association. It should have said in special association with community or cultural group, and it should have said special association with particular person and organisation. In the presentation that you received, there was a duplicate of one of the criteria.
Okay.
So this place is also known as the Pink Hotel. The property was nominated by the community, and formal assessment was completed by the city and confirmed that the Ocean View Motor Inn former meets 6 of the 8 criteria thresholds, including historic importance, rarity, class characteristics, aesthetics, and both of the special association criteria. And the full citation, and it's a very lengthy citation and statement of significance for this property, is included in your documentation package. There was significant engagement from the community during the notification period. City officers received 1,408 submissions, and 97% of these submissions were supportive of entering the place onto the register. 3% of submissions objected to the entry, and this included the owner. Matters raised by the owner are set out in your documentation package, including the city officer's response to the owner with the matters that were raised. Following public information that was provided during the consultation period, the citation was updated to recognise the architect, which is George Ray, and view lines to and from the property. And the proposed heritage boundary is lot on plan as shown here. The fourth place under consideration is the Queensland Country Women's Association in Coolangatta. Formal assessment by city officers confirmed that this place meets historic importance criteria, class characteristics criteria, and both of the special association criteria that are requirements for entry onto the register. The full citation and statement of significance for this property is also included in your documentation package. During the notification period, city officers received 106 submissions for this property. 95% of these were supportive, and this included the owner, which strongly supported listing the property onto the register, highlighting the place's historic and social significance, and also they highlighted its continuing role to serve as a hub for community programs. 5% of submissions did not support entry. And the proposed heritage boundary is lot on plan as we see here today. So in closing, individually, Cedar Creek Hall, Coomera Branch, Queensland Country Women's Association, Ocean View Motor Informer, and Queensland Country Women's Association Coolangatta meet the threshold for entry onto the Gold Coast Local Heritage Register and represent important chapters in our city's story. And the recommendation today is that Council endorses the entry of these places onto the Gold Coast Local Heritage Register. Heritage listing will ensure their recognition and protection into the future for our community. Thank you.
I'm going to start with a question, Anne, if it's all right. The Coomera Branch CWA, who owns that property?
Sorry, what was...
The Coomera CWA, which is the second one you talked about, who owns that property?
Queensland Country Women's Association.
So I was a bit confused that there were 7 submissions supporting the entry and then 1 submission objected to entry, including the owner. So the CWA themselves objected?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Who supported? Who were the people supporting it?
For privacy reasons, I can't divulge the names, but
right, yeah.
they
I'm trying
were...
to work out what was the catalyst. If the CWA themselves weren't wanting it entered, was it members of the public?
Members of the public, and they were all properly formed submissions.
Okay.
The main concern that was raised by the owner was in relation to the area for protection, which is the reason why the boundary was amended.
So would it be fair to say that the original objector has potentially changed their view because the boundary has been changed? Maybe. Yeah. Councillor Fowler. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and through you I can fill in those gaps. So basically the Coomera Branch CWA, it's 2 allotments. So the first is the hall that sits on one side. That hall has all of our local Coomera lads, the original memorabilia, the honours roll, hugely significant. On the other side of the block of land, it used to have a lot of Kadashi trees, and it was where Anzac Day was held in Maudsley. CWA made the decision to not do Anzac Day anymore, which had a huge outcry from the community.
Right.
But that war memorial there isn't the RSL's war memorial. The RSL's war memorial was relocated to Helens Vale. So that was actually John Wayne, previous councillor for Division 2, created that war memorial in 2001. So the CWA's objection, I haven't spoken to them, would be in relation to the adjacent site where the war memorial exists, because they've likely got future development potential.
Oh, right, okay. So what they're trying to say is that area, and obviously you can't speak for them, we can't speak for them, but
I'm not speaking for them.
You're speculating, yeah.
I'm speculating that I believe that, there would be support on the other side, but there's been some movements that would suggest subjectively that there was plans for the other side, including the clearing of those pest species trees and the cancellation of Anzac Day on that site.
Okay. And my question then to you, Anne, is have we had regard, in adjusting the boundary, have we had regard for that objecting submission?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Great, awesome.
Could I ask one question before we move on? My only other question is in relation to the memorial pine, and was that considered as significance?
Are you referring to an actual planting?
So if you look above the war memorial, there's a memorial pine. So Trooper David Pearce passed away in Afghanistan, and that memorial pine was planted by his young children then, who are now older, and holds a lot of significance to the family and the community. I'm just wondering if through this that the consideration was given to that significance of the tree as well as the memorial.
Yeah, I would need to consult the statement of significance. We didn't speak with the owner, so there may be some information that we're not privy to, but certainly we can have a look at that in terms of the statement of significance.
Okay, I'd be happy to connect you with his wife, Nicole, if you did need to. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler.
Awesome. Any other questions? Councillor Doran.
Shouldn't that happen before we make a vote on this?
It's a good question.
Through the chair, sorry, Councillor Doran, could you repeat your question?
So following up on Councillor Fowler's question and comments and the fact that it wasn't able to be answered because you have to look into it, shouldn't we not vote on it until we know the answer to that?
The criteria for entry onto the local heritage register, there are numerous criteria, so that's set out in the citation. So there may be additional information that may augment the significance, but the significance itself is fully evidenced through the citation as it currently stands.
And it's my understanding as well that trees themselves can also be listed on Heritage Register separately.
Absolutely.
It occurs to me that the information that's been provided by Councillor Fowler today is probably materially different than the matter that was considered about the building and the area that you've captured in the report.
Yes, yes, that's
so there
correct.
could be a subsequent application for that tree if it didn't have to form the same heritage listing. It could be, in fact, it might be appropriate for it to be a separate heritage listing.
Yeah, it would form part of the same listing, but it would just augment the information that we already have, which fully demonstrates that the place meets the criteria for entry onto the register.
Okay. Councillor Doran, you still have the floor. Any other questions? Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. Just interested in calling it the Pink Hotel and the Country Women's Hall. Being side by side, I suppose, how do the two together, perhaps like one without the other or both together, does it add any additional weight than being co-located as neighbouring sites?
So through the chair, no, in terms of they're actually considered in their own right and the cultural heritage significance of the places in their own right. The fact that they happen to be adjacent is, it doesn't factor on whether or not they do or don't meet the criteria for entry onto the register.
So is there any, would you consider though that there may be a benefit to having two registered that are neighbouring? Like, is that something we should give any consideration to, them being neighbouring sites?
So through the chair, I would say no, because they need to be considered in their own right.
Yeah.
Naturally, there's a consideration for places in proximity when you consider places on a local heritage register, but the attributes for why they're of cultural heritage significance are mutually exclusive, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. I suppose my other question is where the owners are supportive, that seems a lot more straightforward. Where the owner is not supportive, how does the sort of, I suppose that there might be some financial interests that change, how is that dealt with? Is there any sort of compensation or anything like that is given? How does that work?
So the process set out under the Queensland Heritage Act is all in relation to the cultural heritage significance of the place. The owner can put forward any information that they see fit. So the matters that the owner put forward, some of that was actually in relation to the cultural heritage significance. They also raised other matters. That's really a matter for council. But what I would say is that the city offers a free heritage conservation advisory service to property owners that are on the register. We're here to support them. Being on a register does not necessarily prohibit development. It just simply means that the cultural heritage significance and the values of that property are considered in development. So there are ways of incorporating the heritage of a place responsibly and sustainably in a development of a place.
Any other questions? No? Councillor O'Neill, you've come specifically for this. Did you want to ask questions or do you want to...
Just another question about the ownership and redevelopment of any property that's actually on a heritage register. I know, for instance, the Old Burleigh Theatre there's components of that are on our heritage register, and there's a redevelopment that's going to happen on that site. And did you, as a group, as a section of council, work with the developers on that site?
So that would have been before my time, but yes, I understand that my predecessors did work with the applicant in relation to that development.
This is the Burleigh Arcade you're talking about?
Yeah, the Burleigh Arcade. So the Burleigh Arcade, that development actually does have regard for the heritage, and I think we've been very successfully able to retain the significant features of that place and also to tell the story of the place as part of the interpretation and the development. So, yes, we have been working with the developer in relation to that.
And just another question about the, like if there is a proposed redevelopment of the site at any stage and it is approved to go on the Heritage Register. I know from one of the other buildings in Coolangatta, the team worked and asked their developer to actually create a heritage management plan for their development. Is that usually what happens?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. So there's a process that would unfold. So the first step is a heritage impact statement. So that's really to identify what the potential impacts are, and that also sets out how to mitigate those impacts and incorporate the heritage values as part of the development. That may also entail, for example, the development of a conservation management plan that helps inform the responsible design and implementation of that development. So again, the city's heritage team is here to support property owners through that process and guide them in a way that, I guess, has a balanced outcome.
Thank you.
Great. Councillor Doran.
Thank you. During the presentation, you mentioned something about, in relation to the Pink Hotel, that view lines. I just wrote that down as you said it. That view lines were an important element in the decision. I'm curious to unpack that a little bit. If you could expand on that. That to me just means that they haven't built on the site, so therefore we should protect it.
So through.
Help us understand view lines.
So through the chair. So thank you for your question, Councillor Doran. So the nature of view lines is about recognising the importance of retaining those view sheds to and from the property. As you would have seen in the heritage citation, that explains the importance of those, maintaining the relationship between the property and the Coolangatta foreshore there area, and that's set out. So that's not, what I would say is it's not atypical for a heritage place to consider the view lines to and from a property.
How'd you go? Not good.
I suppose I'm just struggling to understand how the fact that you can see through to the beach means that the property should be protected as one of the criteria for the property to be protected under heritage value. To me, that just means that if someone had to put a tower there, or a bit bigger, or a bit bulkier form, that wouldn't then qualify. It seems to me, just to give you an idea, it seems to me to be a weak argument.
So through the chair, Councillor Doran, so the significance assessment demonstrated that the property met 6 of the 8 criteria. So the nature of view lines is just one aspect of the importance.
But you did reference it in the presentation through chair that was one of the things. I wrote it down as you said it, and I'm trying to understand why that, because that could apply to almost any undeveloped or low developed site in the Gold Coast. If you've got almost any building that, if you use that criteria, couldn't you then apply it to just about any building that's of, say, 2 stories that's somewhere near the beach?
It's a speculative question that isn't specifically related to it, but the idea of view lines here, it sounds like that's one of 6 categories, or one of 8 categories that were considered, 6 of which were ultimately successful. I'm not sure what more the officer could add to say other than, in their professional opinion, they thought that view lines were one of those 8 categories worthy of consideration.
Respectfully, it is one of the... You can disagree in debate,
I'm allowed to ask the question, right? I'm
allowed to ask the question, right? And it's one of 8 that's listed, or 6 that's listed. And yes, there's others that are justifying the decision. I'm just asking why this particular one is considered heritage when it's about what you can see past a site, not the actual site itself.
So maybe you could elaborate on how view lines are considered.
Thank you. Through the chair. So, Councillor Duran, so the nature of view lines was actually raised by the community. So the community actually raised the importance of being able to see the property as a heritage place and its connectedness with the Coolangatta foreshore. So it means that being able to maintain those view sheds to and from the property is an important aspect of being able to appreciate and the association with that place. So view lines and view sheds are not in themselves a criteria, and you probably will notice that from the criteria listed. It's just one aspect that gets considered when we're considering, for example, changes to a place, about the need to maintain those relationships and the view sheds to and from that property to be able to appreciate the place.
So when you use the word view sheds, I'm so sorry, I don't really know what that means, but are we talking about when I'm walking on the Coolangatta foreshore and I'm, looking nominally north, I can see that building and I can see its, what it looks like. That's one view. One view is from the beach to the building, and then obviously there's, the idea is also being able to see it from other, like down the road or whatever it is. What's the street called? Clark Street. I'm looking down Clark Street and I can see it as I'm looking at the beach. Is that what you mean by view sheds? The different aspects from which and to which you might view the building?
Yes, absolutely,
Right.
Councillor. Chair. And also the view lines are actually identified in the citation, that are the specific view lines, and they're identified in yellow there.
Yeah, great. But that's just one part of aesthetics, is that right? Or one part of one of the categories?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
okay, cool.
correct.
Awesome. Thank you for clearing it for me. Councillor Doran, you still have the floor. Any other questions? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. And back on Coomera, can I just ask a question? Just while we're looking into the Memorial Pine further, is there any way, I don't know whether it can be relocated, if there's appetite for that in the community or by the CWA, but my concern is just its protection in the meantime. So is there any way that the line can be extended to include the tree with this resolution or not at this time? Because I'm conscious of what the decision, I'm not voting today, I'm not on the committee, but the council decision that's coming up is that line doesn't include the tree. And I'm not saying it should or it shouldn't, but I'm just concerned about that protection while we determine the future of that.
So through the chair, Councillor Fowler, yes, absolutely, we could revise the boundary between now and the full council meeting to recognise the memorial planting as you've identified.
Thank you. And from my perspective, it's a really difficult one. So we have a community, I'm just talking about the War Memorials lot, we have a community who that is their war memorial in their view, even though it's on private land. It is their tree. They feel very strongly about it. And we have a community group who might have some subjective, but might have some exciting plans for the site as well. So I'm not saying I'm either or, but I'm just saying from this conversation, I think the significance, if it is determined to be that way, does include the tree with the memorial. Yeah.
So I can be clear, are you asking for a map to be prepared that includes that prior to full council? Great. Okay, excellent. Does that sound clear?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Councillor Marshall.
I just had a question on the view lines, actually, if we could go back just to the Pink Hotel one. More from my own learning. So just if we had to look at that aerial shot, I don't know if we can scroll through
the... There it is. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Go ahead.
So, and thank you, Chair, through you, in terms of that view line, so is that suggesting, and I'm not suggesting for a second that we are going to do this, but where that public car park is there on the foreshore, we couldn't build something there that would block the Pink Hotel's view of the ocean? Is that what, I know we want to be able to see it from the foreshore, but we also want to be able to see from the Pink Hotel to the beach. Is that?
Yes, through the chair, Councillor Marshall, yes, that's correct. So in the sense that it doesn't mean that you can't build anything there. It just means we need to have regard for the maintaining those view sheds, with all things considered, of course. Like anything that's on the local heritage register, it's about a balanced outcome. So it's just recognising, and this was what was raised by the community.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I can be really clear about your question. Your question was that if council wanted to build something in that car park, like a multi-storey car park, we would have to think about the heritage listing of of the Pink Hotel if we were to do that? Is that kind of what the question you're asking?
Yes, Chair. I guess the sightlines, and I'm going to kind of conspiracy theory levels here, but that
Go on.
that if you're heritage listed and you quote sightlines, that protects your view and stops somebody maybe in front of you from building something. So it's not just that we're protecting that site, but potentially we're protecting the corridor of site beyond your property. And should that be, I know it's not, but should that car park be 1- and 2-story houses now that somebody potentially couldn't buy that and then put something up because they would be blocking the heritage listed view line, which is behind them, I guess was my question. I know that's not, I know that's our land, but I was just trying to get my head around whether the view was completely protected if we had vision of sightlines as a part of our heritage listing. That was all.
Yeah, so what through the chair, what I would say, it just means that it needs to be considered. There are different ways of approaching this. You could actually have an extended boundary, so that we do have some places on our local heritage register which actually incorporate these concepts. But the way that that's done is with a larger boundary. So some of our memorials, for example, we've considered view lines, and we have a larger boundary as a result. What we're suggesting here is a more moderate outcome, where we're just identifying the lot on plan, but recognising that the regard for view lines would be a consideration.
And it wasn't actually in relation to this. It was just more using this in context.
How might that impact other sites were people to leverage a similar piece of legislation in order to get a certain outcome in certain locations?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. Does anyone have any more questions? Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of questions because I was looking at, it is in relation to the Pink Hotel because read the town planner submission. I just wonder if there's a couple of points there. I just wonder if you could respond on. One of them was the assertion that council's reactive and it's like a knee-jerk reaction, and just that there's no planned heritage sort of review. So I just wonder if you obviously considered that and had a response on perhaps how we do the whole process and how.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw the officer in a second, but I think anyone can make a submission at any time, and council is nominally obligated to assess that submission. So if people make a submission, we're kind of obligated. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you. So there was actually a public nomination that was submitted for the property. So when we receive a public nomination, we follow a due process to assess the property. So that's an important trigger. We do have a program of works that we're working through. As you would appreciate, there's a significant amount of work that goes into significance assessment. We follow a very robust process that includes independent review. My team actually has a very broad portfolio of responsibilities, including heritage compliance for all of the cities, capital and operational work program. And it's only really recently that we've had the resourcing that we need to progress a lot of this work. What I will say is I'm very pleased to say that we actually now have an almost full contingent of a very experienced and skilled team to actually start taking this work forward and incorporate this as part of usual business.
Does that answer your question? So the answer to your question is when people submit, we have to respond, but we also have a program of work that we do proactively as well.
So if I could just touch on, that program of work, I get that the community can submit and we will respond. That's great. I'm probably thinking about the program of work. Is that managing the existing ones on the register, or does that program of work from the city's perspective, irrespective of any community submission, proactively look at areas of the city and, say, self-nominate?
So, that's a good question. Is the city a submitter?
So through the chair, just to respond to your question, that's a really good question. So we do both, really. So the city owns 61 places that are on the local heritage register. So my team supports the asset managers with the conservation management planning for all of those places. And we also undertake heritage survey periodically to identify places for protection, and that's part of our legislative responsibility. And then we also respond when we receive nominations, for example, or when members of the public bring to our attention the heritage significance, and also councillors may also bring places to our attention as well. So,
like a tree, perhaps.
yeah.
Councillor Martin, you still have the floor, then Councillor Fowler.
And my other question was just in relation to, do we have a different rating category for places with heritage listed? You know, perhaps it's then, you know,
Do you mean like a property
zoned.
rating category? Like a land use or a property rating category for how many rates they pay?
I'm just wondering if a place is added to the register, perhaps is there a sort of a lower category, like if it's zoned or density for a higher carrying count? You know, is there a discount essentially, or is there a rating category for heritage listed that may be lower to kind of assist with their obligations to maintain the property?
Please.
Through the chair. Currently, we don't have that, but it's an excellent idea, and it's in fact something that many local governments do in Queensland.
So they provide some sort of concession if you're a heritage listed property, in a not dissimilar way that we provide under Land for Wildlife. We have a program where we provide some resources to help those Land for Wildlife designated properties with their obligations.
Yes.
What a great idea, Councillor Martin.
I can't take credit for it, but it was referenced in the submission. So, how would we consider that rating category? Would that be through our general rates?
We'd ask for a report to be provided, probably to the Governance, Administration and Finance Committee.
Okay.
That a report be provided to the Governance, Administration and Finance Committee regarding possible concessions for heritage or properties on the local heritage register. Yeah, leave it at that.
Yeah.
You could put it in the resolution if you like the idea of it.
Okay, I might hold that till question time is over. Thanks, Chair.
Have a bit of a play with some words. But yeah.
May I just add to that too? There's an opportunity here too, is to provide some, apart from rating release, rates release, for example, relief, is some other sort of incentive program where we could offer, currently provide free conservation advice and support, but there's an opportunity to perhaps that we could offer some other sort of financial incentive to support the conservation of heritage places, much like other local governments in Queensland.
Councillor Fowler was next, yep.
Thank you. Just one last question. You don't need to go back to the slide. In terms of owners of these sites, do they, once decisions are being made, do they have appeal rights? Just in terms of process?
So thank you for your question. Not as far as I'm aware. So the process is set out under the Queensland Heritage Act, where an owner is required to put a submission in on whether a place does or does not meet the criteria for entry onto a register. They may, of course, present other information, but the consideration is around whether a place does or doesn't meet the criteria for entry. I'm not aware of any ability to appeal that.
Excellent. Councillor Martin, did you want to play with a motion that has a changed structure?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
So,
if we could bring it up, yeah,
do you mind?
it's loading. Apologies, team.
So we'd make the first words one, and then here we are. The possible concessions applicable to properties. Maybe outlining a program for possible concessions. Outlining a program for possible concessions that could be applicable to properties issued on the local heritage register. That could be applicable. On the local, you have to change that, not the heritage register, the local. Is it called local government heritage register? What's its actually official name?
The Gold Coast Local Heritage Register.
The Gold Coast Local Heritage Register. it feels strange that we're referring it to the GAF committee, but because it relates to rates, I think it probably does need to go there. But yeah.
Fair question. The question I have is, look, in this scenario where it's a whole site, I wonder if you would consider, with the report, we've got other sites, in Division 13, like the Burleigh Theatre Arcade, which is just, it's a facade treatment. So would you think that there's enough flexibility with this change that the report would include those that are whole sites, and those that, if we were considering this, for those that are just a facade, obviously I'm not seeking to change the rating category of a fully developed building that has a facade that's very different to a whole site that is, protected.
So I think the vagueness of item 2 would be clear enough to capture that intent. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to say you don't want to, if someone's going to build a 30-story high-rise, you don't want to give them a rating concession, but you want to have regard for the heritage elements that they have retained, and that they're. So to me, the way you've outlining a program for possible concessions seems adequately open to capture what you're talking about. They might come back, and the council officers might come back and say, look, it's not going to work out. We're not going to be able to come with structured right. But they might come back and go, actually, we can quantify the heritage elements here, and there can be a concession that is commensurate with the elements protected.
Yeah. Where it says possible. Sorry. Yes.
Anne, did you want to add to that?
Yep, through the chair. To assist with the response as well, just to recognise that the citation actually sets out the elements of significance and the elements of non-significance. So that also assists with understanding which aspects are of value and which aspects are not. So really the boundary is really intended as a trigger to consider heritage, and then what you would consider then is the elements that are set out in the statement of significance, and seek to minimise the impact on those aspects.
And I also think the report should talk about what other local governments do, so that there can be some comparative elements to it. So I don't think we need to put that in the resolution, but just let it be on the record that comparing what other councils are doing with our own proposal makes some sense.
Just with that number 2 there, where it says possible concessions, that could say possible incentives or concessions.
Yeah, that's great.
May I add
Of course.
something? Just picking up on what Councillor Fowler pointed out in terms of the boundary, around the amendment to the boundary to include the memorial planting.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm conscious that I don't want to necessarily do that. I prefer you guys came back with that report separately, and then if we can if you can come back with that map and then get some advice from whoever manages your advice in that regard, and make a recommendation to Councillor Fowler about how she would need to change this resolution in order to accommodate what she's asked for. Yeah, once we've got that information, we can change the resolution. At the moment, it's Councillor Martin's resolution. Councillor Martin, we've kind of designed a motion. Are you happy to move it, or?
Yeah, happy to move it, Chair.
That's great. Did anyone want to second it? Councillor Marshall is willing to second it. That's great. Councillor Martin moved, seconded Councillor Marshall. Councillor Martin, did you want to open debate?
Yes, Chair. But if you would permit me, I'd probably yield. I wonder if Councillor O'Neill would like to say a few words, but I wonder if you wanted to open or close. I'd be happy to. Okay. Yeah. And obviously, because
everyone gets a voice in this committee. We don't necessarily just go for and against. Everyone gets a go.
Absolutely. And obviously, it's a significant amount of submissions for Coolangatta were entered, so I think it's obviously a large element. Thank you for the report. Thank you for moving this so quickly, and it's great to see that there were multiple sites that were considered. Obviously, that going out to the community and seeing in some places a lot of feedback. I've read a lot of those submissions, including the property owner, which I totally acknowledge that side of things, where the property owners were supportive, straightforward. It's a little bit more challenging, but that's why I'm interested in making the change around, what future incentives or concessions might be available for those property owners. They obviously pay rates and land tax, and so with this comes obligations to maintain the heritage. So I think if we can support that, but I'm also buoyed by, it's those that have partial heritage. We're going to consider that it's not a rates loophole or something like to that effect. I think it's always better to act now than trying to act when it's too late. We can't get heritage back. We're a young city, and some of these iconic locations starting to mature and protect some of that identity and cultural heritage, I think is really important. So pleased to see our heritage register start to grow. So thank you. Hoping to move the item.
Great. Anyone want to speak against? Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Martin, for moving this, and that new paragraph there too. I'm totally in support of that. I want to thank the Heritage team, Anne and her team. You have done a magnificent report, especially on the Pink Hotel. I learnt a lot of stuff that I didn't know about Coolangatta history, so thank you. I just want to make it clear, though, that, and it has been mentioned in question time, that the Heritage team do historic and heritage surveys from time to time. So I've been aware that the Pink Hotel has been on that list for a long time, and I actually supported that. So a lot of that work had already been done before the nomination came in. So again, I think it just goes to show, and having the 6 of the 8 criterion met, I think it goes to show the historical content, the cultural content for placing this on a local heritage register is massive. And I do acknowledge the owners of the property are not in support, and but I am comfortable that can be handled in a way that you will work with the owners if they ever want to do any redevelopment on that site. Sight lines, I'm more about site corridors, and that's mentioned a lot in our city plan. And I can remember a building in Rainbow Bay, and one of my concerns was about site corridors coming down from Point Danger into Rainbow Bay. So it is very important. Coolangatta has such a rich history, and I think this is a nod to the era of the 50s, 60s and 70s, where Coolangatta was such a big tourism town, where all of Marine Parade had guest houses or motels. And this is probably a great example, especially with the architect George Ray, who is quite renowned. I didn't realise how prominent he was until I read your report either, Anne. I think it's a nod to him, it's a nod to the era, and we have a lot of heritage-listed buildings now in Coolangatta, and I think that's appropriate. I think we need to look back on our history and celebrate it. So I really would encourage all the councillors to support this, and I certainly will be speaking for it at full council if I need to as well. But I'm very excited for this to happen. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Did anyone else have any words? I'm going to count that as closed otherwise. All right, let's take the vote. All those in favour? As a division, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Curtis, Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Martin, Councillor Castro, Councillor Marshall. Those against? Councillor Doran. The motion is carried. Did anyone come today with general business they wanted to raise? Anne and team, thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much.
Great
Thank
to have
you.
you with us.
Thank you, Chair. Thank
Meeting
you,
closed,
councillors.
9:57.